Your name?
Morgan Jones.
Morgan Jones is not just a survivor. He is a walking wound. He is the embodiment of trauma that never healed, grief that never found rest, and morality that was shattered and rebuilt too many times to stay whole. In The Walking Dead, many characters lose people, lose homes, lose hope, but Morgan loses himself. At the beginning, Morgan is introduced as a broken man, holding on to routine like a lifeline. His wife is dead. His son is everything. He teaches Rick how to survive, but even then, his eyes already carry exhaustion far beyond physical fatigue. He is not living. He is enduring. When Morgan fails to kill his walker wife, it is not weakness. It is psychological paralysis. His mind cannot accept the finality of loss. He chooses denial over closure, and that single decision becomes the seed of everything that follows. Trauma psychologists call this complicated grief, when mourning becomes frozen, when the brain refuses to process reality. And then Dwayne dies. Morgan doesn't just lose his son, he loses his identity. That moment fractures his psyche permanently. After Dwayne's death, Morgan enters a dissociative state. He doesn't cry properly. He doesn't scream like a normal person. Instead, he becomes mechanical. He writes names on walls. He kills walkers obsessively. He talks to ghosts. His mind retreats inward because the external world is too painful to inhabit. This is classic PTSD mixed with survivor's guilt and psychotic breakdown. He believes he failed as a father. He believes he failed as a protector. And worse, he believes he doesn't deserve to live. So he turns pain into ritual. Every walker killed becomes a symbolic punishment of himself. Every written name is an attempt to give meaning to meaningless death. Morgan is not hunting walkers. He is hunting his own guilt. Later, when Eastman finds him, Morgan is feral, animalistic. He attacks strangers. He sees threats everywhere. His nervous system is permanently stuck in fight or flight. Eastman doesn't heal Morgan through philosophy. He gives him structure. He gives him a staff. He gives him Aikido. He gives him rules. And most importantly, he gives Morgan purpose. Morgan clings to pacifism not because he is peaceful, but because violence reminds him of who he became after Dwayne died. His all life is precious ideology is not spiritual enlightenment. It is fear. Fear of himself. Fear of losing control again. Fear of becoming that monster who slaughtered everything in sight. Pacifism becomes Morgan's psychological anchor. Without it, he believes he will dissolve back into madness. But trauma does not disappear just because you put rules over it. It waits. Morgan carries unresolved rage, grief, and guilt inside him, like buried explosives. He tries to suppress it with meditation and mantras, but suppression is not healing. It is delay. Every time Morgan refuses to kill someone who deserves it, he is subconsciously punishing himself. He believes suffering is the price of survival. He chooses pain because pain feels familiar. When he meets people who mirror his past, children, families, broken souls, his trauma gets triggered. He becomes overprotective, hypervigilant, emotionally unstable. His brain constantly scans for loss because loss defined him. Morgan does not see the world as it is. He sees it through Dwayne's eyes. That is why he struggles with leadership. That is why he hesitates in critical moments. That is why he oscillates between extreme mercy and extreme violence. He is psychologically fragmented. One part of him wants peace. Another part wants annihilation. Neither side ever fully wins. His arc is not linear. It is cyclical. He heals, he breaks. He heals again, then breaks worse. When Morgan finally snaps and returns to killing, it is not regression. It is emotional flooding. Years of suppressed trauma erupt at once. His violence becomes precise, cold, almost ritualistic. He doesn't rage, he executes. That is what makes it terrifying. He is calm. This is what untreated trauma looks like when it becomes functional. Morgan becomes a man who kills quietly. Not for pleasure, not for revenge, but because he no longer knows any other way to feel control. Yet even in his darkest phase, Morgan still seeks redemption. He builds cells instead of graves. He gives enemies chances. He tries to believe that people can change, because he desperately needs to believe that he himself can change. Morgan is not naive. He is hopeful out of necessity. Hope is the last thing keeping him human. Psychologically, Morgan represents moral injury, the deep internal wound that forms when someone violates their own core values under extreme circumstances. Every life he takes scars him. Every life he spares risks others. He is trapped between ethics and survival, between memory and reality, between who he was and who he became. Unlike Rick, who adapts. Unlike Carol, who compartmentalizes. Morgan absorbs everything. Every death, every mistake, every failure. He carries them inside. That is why he looks tired even when resting. That is why his voice is soft. That is why his eyes always seem distant. Morgan never truly leaves the day Dwayne died. He just walks forward with it. In the end, Morgan's story is not about zombies. It is about grief. It is about trauma. It is about how fragile morality becomes when the world collapses. Morgan teaches us that survival is not the same as healing. That mercy can be a shield. That violence leaves echoes. And that sometimes the hardest battle is not against the dead, but against the memories that refuse to die.